Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, February 4th, 2020. Let's take a look at our solar wind speeds. Right now sitting at 373.0 kilometers per second. Whoa, sorry about that, folks. With a density of 4.8. Now, I observed the solar wind speed around 6 p.m. this evening, and we were sitting around 349 kilometers per second. So we were expecting increased solar winds to affect Earth's magnetic field sometime around today and tomorrow. And right on time, we start to see the increase of solar wind speed. Also, the KP indice was at a 0. Now we are sitting at a 1. So another indication that solar wind speeds are increasing as well. 3 days in a row without sunspots, now putting us at 19 for the year of 2020. That's 19 days in 2020 without sunspots, still very early in the year. And let's go ahead and take a look at the grandsolarminimum.com. That's our website, to our space weather section. And I just want to show you guys the active regions that we were kind of following the last broadcast we had. Well, not really turning into much. In fact, pretty much decaying as it crosses the eastern limb. And I talked to Lee Wheelbarger about this not too long ago, and a lot of this has to do with, as well as far as energy for these sunspots, when you have the weaker magnetic connection like we have right now. We are the only planet on this side of the plane, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let me grab my handy dandies. Right here, strong connections back here, guys, all these planets. So magnetic fields are a lot stronger connections than what they are when you're the only planet that needs a connection on this side of the sun, on this side of the plane. So what I'm getting at is much weaker here, much stronger here, and we are definitely seeing that effect as well. So when we get Earth-facing sunspots and they start to decay, a lot of that has to do with is that the magnetic connection is not as strong on that side. So just like I kind of expected, these sunspots, or these active regions that we saw behind the eastern limb, when we were talking about these, I think it was on Tuesday morning, those are pretty much kind of fizzling out as expected. But we do have some more coronal holes to kind of pay attention to over the next couple of days. There's one right there that is probably about a day and a half away from being Earth-facing. I'll go ahead and point this out. Here's this one right here. Earth-facing is at the 0. As you can see, this is starting to move into that Earth-facing, like I said, another day and a half. This is going to be on the northern side of the magnetic field, a lot like what we're experiencing right now, which is coming from the far southern part. So again, we'll get grazed here, possibly grazed there. Seismic activity, which I have a couple of things to report tonight. We'll be on a watch, nothing too crazy, 6.0s, 6.5s. But like I said, I'll report on that here a bit. But here we have another coronal hole that's coming in the next couple of days. And then back here on the eastern limb, just beyond it, we have a pretty decent size area here, a very weak corona. And so we will continue to watch this as we see less spots, more coronal holes, which the reason why we see coronal holes is because of a weak corona. And we are at a minimum, that's not unusual. But just to kind of give you guys an update on where we are with, solar activity. I know we started off the year with quite a bit of sunspots, but things have kind of settled back down into normal minimum conditions as of late. All right, let's take a look at some articles tonight. I've got a lot to talk about. Let's first start with Turkey here. At least 38 people have been killed in 2 avalanches that hit eastern Turkey on Tuesday and Wednesday, February 4th and 5th, 2020. Many of them were first responders who were searching for the survivors of the first incident in a van which was buried about 16.5 feet of snow. It's unknown how many remain under the snow, but there are fears there might be dozens. SAR operations are still in progress, hampered by blizzard conditions. According to officials, the first slide took place around 16:45 local time Tuesday, February 4th, on a road connecting the Van province to its Bahçesaray district. 2 vehicles were involved in the incident, a van and snow clearing machine. At least 5 people were killed from that incident. Turkey Disaster and Emergency Management Authorities said they've sent 100 rescue workers to the province to search for 2 people still missing after Tuesday's avalanche. The second avalanche hit around 12 local time Wednesday, injuring 53 rescuers and leaving an unknown number buried under snow, according to the Daily Sabah. A van director, Osman Okar, is among the injured as well. The AFAD said that more search and rescue experts were deployed to the disaster zone, as well as AFAD crew and the Grand Mary from Ankara. In addition, 28 ambulances were dispatched and a mobile base station. Interior Minister said the terrain is too rough to use vehicles to clear the snow, so crews can only use shovels and sticks. That is, wow. So we'll keep you posted on this story. I saw this earlier, and it was literally a wall of snow, and we will continue to monitor this. But just again, to talk about how, we haven't seen the kind of winter in parts of the United States that some were expecting, especially me. And but now we see other parts of the world getting this extreme snow, this extreme cold. So you have to look at it outside the box, guys. I mean, just because you look out your window and it's sunny and mild out, doesn't mean that we're experiencing some rough weather across the globe, which we are. And we've seen it all across the Middle East all winter for them here in the Northern Hemisphere. All right, let's shift our focus back to the states. Portions of Interstate 70 shut down in Missouri as winter storm marches eastward. We're talking about Cade, which will be affecting us as well here in the Northeast, if that's where you live. A stretch of Interstate 70 was shut down in Missouri as officials warned of hazardous travel. Dozens of school districts canceled classes, and about 9,000 customers were without power in Oklahoma Wednesday morning. As of late Wednesday afternoon, the westbound lanes of I-70 at the Missouri River Bridge in Rocheport remain closed. The closure was expected to continue for several hours, the Missouri Department of Transportation said on Twitter. The Missouri State Highway Patrol tweeted photos that showed a damaged semi-truck and other vehicles on the bridge. Let's go ahead and zoom this in a little bit for you here. Guys, I have to stress this over and over and over when it's this kind of weather. And I'm going to be practicing when I preach tomorrow. I'm making my travels once again to Massachusetts. I have a 3.5-hour drive, and it will be snowing like this in the morning, sleet, ice, you name it. But I'm going to take the proper preparations, and I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to be going 65 miles on a icy highway early morning rush hour traffic, especially just before sunrise. So folks, please, if you have to travel and during the storm, take it down a little bit on the speed, give proper distance, and give yourself proper time to get to where you need to go. More pictures here of the highways out here. This is the view of US 75 in Washington County. Slick conditions reported across the state earlier this morning. If travel is necessary, check oakroads.org for interactive travel conditions map. Very useful there. Not a lot of power outages. Schools were out. This is to be expected for this kind of weather in this region, as they're not really prone to a lot of this kind of winter weather. So first taste of real winter stuff here for Oklahoma City and others in the region here on February 5th. All right, moving right along here. A deep 6.2 earthquake hits Java, Indonesia. A strong earthquake registered by the USGS as 6.2 hit near the coast of Java, Indonesia, February 5th, 2020. The agency is reporting a depth of around 367 miles. The EMSE is reporting the same magnitude and depth as well. Thankfully, there was no tsunami warnings or any kind of issues of that nature, as this earthquake was out in the middle of the ocean. So not a lot of people felt a strong amount of shaking. There were no casualties or injuries at this point to report. All right, and here we go with another one of these really difficult to pronounce volcano areas. So I'm going to have a little help tonight, but the earthquake swarm at
Michoacán, Guanajuato.
Volcanic Field in Mexico. Says here, an earthquake swarm is in progress at the
Michoacán, Guanajuato
volcanic field in Mexico. At this time, it's unclear whether the quakes are volcanic or tectonic in the origin. The zone contains over 1,400 vents and covers an area approximately 125 by 155 miles in the state of
Michoacán, Guanajuato.
And the last known eruption of this region took place in the Paracutan volcano from February 20th, 1943 to February 25th, 1943, a VEI 4. So lots of earthquake action happening around the volcanoes. And again, this is something I talked about Monday and Tuesday with KP indices where they were coronal hole facing Earth. These KP indices being between 0 and 2, ripe conditions for volcanic or seismic activity, and a little bit of everything when it comes to that here in this situation. But according to the CENAR or MPARED, more than 1,800 earthquakes were recorded since January 5th, 2020. The largest of the two was a 4.1 registered on January 23rd and 30th. The agency has sent teams to conduct further surveys and identify the source of the seismicity. Despite the number of earthquakes, there are no reports of damage, and that's a blessing in its own right there. The distribution of seismicity shows that it develops at a depth of about 25 miles, which roughly corresponds to the thickness of the crust in the area. In the past, several similar swarms of purely tectonic origin were recorded in the area, with the most recent in 2006. So, actually here it says we had several major earthquakes along the coast in this area, at 8.1 to 7.6 over the past 10 years. The SSN has reported 10 seismic events with magnitudes greater than 5.0. So no stranger to volcanic and earthquake activity. Interesting to see, since 2006, that was right at the beginning, at the tail end of a max heading into a minimum, the beginning of it. And once again, we get an encore presentation in this minimum from this same area. So again, just more correlation, in my opinion, that we have right in front of us to prove low solar activity. In my opinion, it seems like we're looking at the most likely events when we have the lowest of solar activity, and almost like clockwork, when we have it reported in the morning, talking about low solar winds, coronal holes, you name it, and then we see it. So, all right, let's switch gears a little bit. Now, I want to thank everybody on our Monday night show who contributed. Is that the cat? Well,
was that the cat?
I don't know. Little malfunction here in the studio. That, wow.
I don't know what just happened.
I don't either.
That was a big bang.
Sorry about that, folks. But as I was saying, those of you who put in your contributions, as I was trying to say, during our last show Monday evening, the YouTube members that joined up, some of you upgraded your membership status. Some of you just plain donated to the channel. So that was a good start Monday night. And if we continue to grow at that rate, we'll be back to doing these climate type issues, articles and stuff like that here in the near future. I wanted to give us a little sample though. There was a couple stories that I did want to cover, just in, saying thank you. We hear what you guys are asking for. We want to deliver on that as well. So we used to talk a lot about the Green New Deal. We'll just call it GND. AOC, we know, brought this to the world. And, it sounds like a wonderful superhero type plan. But what people that follow this, who support this, don't understand is the cost and the seriousness of the change, not just changing the economy, but let's just go ahead and read this here. A new Heartland Institute policy brief warns that the implementation of the Green New Deal, introduced by AOC and championed by other leading members of the Democratic Party, would cause serious environmental and ecological harm. There is primarily due to massive land use of renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power, and the amount of rare earth minerals that would be needed to mine and manufacture these energy sources. Now, the brief authored by Paul Dreisen, a policy advisor to the Committee of Constructive Tomorrow, notes that the GND has already been roundly criticized for astronomical costs it would impose upon factories, businesses, households, hospitals, and virtually every other sector in the U.S. economy, as well as for the economic devastation it would inflict. It goes on to say that Dreisen argues too little attention has been paid to the fact that GND policies would seriously harm the environment, including lands, wildlife habitats, and threatened and endangered species, and thus would undermine the very values of environmentalists have been talking about for decades now. The main problem would be excessive amount of land that would be needed to power the country with wind and solar. Dreisen estimates 18.8 billion solar panels would be required, covering a 57,048 square miles, the equivalent of blanketing the entire states of New York and Vermont combined. Dreisen also notes that the negative habitat impacts on desert tortoises and other rare, threatened, or endangered species from solar farms have already prompted legislators, regulators, and courts to block or ban solar facilities in such critical habitat areas. It goes on to read that such as parts of the California's Mojave Desert, despite the fact that such sunny areas would be ideal for locations of solar energy facilities, what will these legislators, regulators, and courts do when solar power, which currently provides 1.5% of the country's electricity, is dramatically expanded into more habitats? Right now, solar and wind is only providing 1.5% of our energy right now. That's it. The footprint needed for wind power is far larger and more destructive, while noting it would be virtually impossible to power the entire country using just wind power. Obviously, Dreisen estimates 2.2 million turbines would be required to do so, covering 500,682 square miles of land. This means covering an area in the size of Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, and most of West Virginia combined. These turbines are also responsible for killing hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of birds and bats each year. Estimates of the death toll range from 570,000 to 10 million a year, with wind currently making up only 6.6% of the U.S. electricity portfolio. The number of bird to bat deaths would exponentially increase with a hypothetical push to 100% wind. Yeah, imagine that. If we're losing 10 million birds now, I mean, that's 6.6% of the energy. Just think about the increase. So this article is drawn up pretty good here, guys. It's pointing out not only just what it would do to the economy, but what it's going to do to land usage, what it's going to do to natural habitat on the ground and in the air. Renewable sources also need to be placed further away from urban centers than natural gas and coal facilities, requiring the building of thousands of miles of high transmission power lines. I've talked about this as well in previous articles from What's Up With That, about people aren't taking into consideration why the prices are high with solar. You have to maintain these transmission lines. And yes, you do have to locate these solar farms farther out away from the urban areas, which do lead to increased transmission lines, more maintenance, more costs. And the reason is building thousands of miles of high transmission power lines, threatening a large increase in wildfires. No, if we bury it, it might be the solution to keeping the wildfires from happening. So let's not take that card yet. But point taken, if you are putting these power lines on the poles. In 2018 and 2019, in California, demonstrate that when power sources serve distant urban and industrial areas, transmission lines must frequently traverse wild grass, brush, and forest areas that dry up during long summer and pose serious fire threats. It goes on to talk about everything from the cost to the environment to killing things, also the pollution that these pieces of equipment put off. these turbines. And then he also has the following documents provide more information on the GND and renewable energy. So if you guys really want to take some time and study this stuff, this article here on what's up with that, I'll show you the title, Brief Details How the Green New Deal Would Be an Environmental Disaster. Great article. And then he points out a lot of sources here for you to go and check out what the cost is, what the real results would be from this GND, and just how dangerous it is, not just to the economy and our pockets, but also to our environment. And this GND was designed to save the environment. So very confusing on what's going on with that. And here we go, no trick zone. New 5,680 year tree ring temperature reconstruction for Southern America, for Southern South America, reveals no clear warming trend in recent decades. And just like every other time we talk about trust the science, it is from sources like this. And this is why I get a kick out of these global warmists who say that climate deniers are deniers of science. And this is the information that I trust right here. These tree ring sediments, the readings here. You guys look at these graphs. The proof is here as far as, yes, there is rise, there is falls in temperature. But this study also suggests that during the 1700s and the 1800s, it was warmer than what it is in this current century. So interesting, as we were talking about this a couple nights ago about delay of solar cycles, how I believe solar cycle 23 temperature delay came at solar cycle 24, and then the delay will be here from 24 to 25, where we'll also start to see some average or below average temperatures throughout the next decade. That's just my opinion, just looking at the past trends. But again, once again, science, the science that we follow, tree rings, ice cores, everything that we can get from a scientific lab that is measured, and not this myth of CO2 being a greenhouse gas that traps everything. When indeed, 1700s and 1800s, I don't remember anybody driving around SUVs and jet setting on airplanes across the country. Or we weren't battling it out about the usage of coal. We thrived off of coal during that period. If it wasn't for coal, I think we would have had a lot of people freezing to death, that's for sure. But we'll leave a link for you guys. Check out this article here on No Trick Zone. I just wanted to show that there is proof out there that we were warmer in a period of time where there was less industrial businesses happening. We weren't contributing the small amounts of trace gas that we are now back here in the 1700s and 1800s, but yet it was warmer back then than it was now. And we're also seeing trends of cooling in that part of South America right now as we speak as well. So interesting to show that as well. Not really much of a growth in temperatures and warmth, but now starting to see a cooling trend in these parts of this area as well. But anyway, I'll leave the link for you guys. You can check it out. So the UAH came out, and well, it's unchanged. For November, December, and now January, we have had temperatures at 0.55, 0.56, and unchanged for January at 0.56. Again, guys, this is in complete response from the weak El Nino that we have this year. Also, when you're talking about the sun's tilt, its closest approach was in January. So as we are approaching the closest approach of this orbit, I'm talking about November, December, January, and now February. Now we start to see temperatures starting to fluctuate back and forth between mild and cold. But as we get to the end of this month, indications are showing me that we will see a lot more cold here in the lower 48 as we get close to the end of February, naturally. But I begin to wonder if this is where we are in January. And I mean, I can't really predict because I just report, but I'd be shocked if this continues to peak up. I'm going to guess that February will come in a little bit lower. There is a lot of cold in the Northern Hemisphere. Plus, I see a late outbreak here in the United States that could affect temperatures as well for the first time really in this winter season. So here we are now. And it's pretty on level with what we had 18, 19. So I'd really be shocked if we approach the 0.6 or 0.7 region and continue to climb upward, just due to where we are in the solar minimum cycle. And like I said earlier, we're still witnessing very low minimum conditions, even though we saw some sunspots the beginning of January. But again, that does happen from time to time. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when it comes to these geomagnetic activities, we're not even talking about the possibility of G1 storms anymore. So whenever we get increases from solar wind and it's still just really weak to not cause enough geomagnetic activity, that's lower it is, the worse it gets. Folks, that's not an indication of the sun waking up anytime soon. So what do I think about these temperatures here? Not sure, but it makes sense now. Thinking about El Nino, the sun, our orbit around to the sun, that stuff to me makes sense to where the temperatures are. And if we're going to follow trends, then we can't ignore what comes next, and everything that goes up must come down. And does that mean we see a cooler start to summer if temperatures begin to plummet and drop near the 0.2, maybe even the 0.1 above baseline? Who knows? By next fall. But then we'll start to see an increase. But I don't think we're going to see another peak in the 0.56 in the coming 2 or 3 years easily. That's just my observation looking at this. I'm just trying to follow the pattern here, folks. All right, let's take a look at our local, well, I should say local, because if you're in the US, you're watching this, this is local to you. All right. So we've got several systems coming across the south, the Midwest, into the Northeast. Northwest, same old for you guys, rain and snow every day. But right now we got some weather in the south to deal with. Severe thunderstorms possible for the East Coast and back in the south, Mississippi, Georgia. Meanwhile, to the north of this system, we've got rain, snow, and ice. And as this thing continues to trek eastward, it continues to get stronger on the East Coast, bringing threat to severe weather once again by Friday, as this system will change to all snow on Friday for much of upstate New York and into the Northeast, where it could bring totals anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of snow by the time we get all said and done by Saturday afternoon for the Northeast, parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, especially the upstate above Albany and above. That's the good areas that we could possibly see 5 to 10 inches of snow from tomorrow morning all the way through Saturday afternoon into Saturday night. And Saturday is going to be all light event anyway, but that's when the cold air is really reinforced. So Thursday and Friday are going to be like a 1-2 punch here for the New York area, and high pressure settles in, really keeping us cold and dry over the next several days. And then by the time we get to, this is Monday, this coming work week of Monday next week, another system not as potent as what we saw this past weekend, going into the east, mainly rain across this system here. Temperatures will be teetering on the 34 to 37 degree line. So that's why this will be just a nasty, cold, raw rain. But then we start to see a little bit of return to winter weather coming back around the February 12th. This could turn into a Valentine's Day snow in for most of you folks, especially in the Northeast. Still too far out to say if it's going to be all rain or all snow, but it starts as snow, turns into rain, with more cold air following it, and some light lake effect snow is also possible. Then we get into February 15th, another decent shot of some snow, probably talking in the 3 to 6 inch rain here. And then another big system to form around the 17th of February. This could also be a significant snowmaker. This is also showing rain and snow, and then ending as snow. And then a huge mess begins to form in the south on the 20th to the 21st, and this could be a mid-Atlantic nightmare, but we'll have to wait and see. So there's plenty of weather to deal with here as far as February is concerned. And then temperatures, well, it's going to be on a wild roller coaster. I've been saying this since Monday. We're going to have plenty of ups and downs. There's your first warm wave right here, and then here comes a blast of cold, and then another warm area is pushed out by next week before Valentine's Day. Actually pretty nice. But that's when the cold starts to invade the northern part of the United States, the Northeast, the Northern Plains, the Northwest, the Great Lakes as well. And this will continue to push southward into the middle part of February and just keep things in the northern part of the United States cold, really cold. In fact, some parts could be seeing single digits to below zero for high temperatures in some of the extreme far northern states. But from February 15th, I've been saying this since January, but if you live in the Northeast, the Ohio Great Lakes area, the Northern Plains and the Plain States in the Northwest, you will see the best chance for winter weather and winter cold, believe me. So I've been watching this temperature change here over the past few days, and this has been consistent. So we will definitely get a shot of colder air beginning right around the 13th of February, and really just starts to dominate the temperatures in the northern part of the United States. Now, if you live southward of Ohio Valley and south, you got some nice weather. But by 19th of February, that cold air is so strong that it does affect all the way down to Florida. That's the only area that's going to stay hot. You drive past that Panhandle state line and you're in the 40s. You go from the 70s to the 40s almost in just a few miles. So this Arctic cold air blast is showing us that winter is still alive. It ain't over yet. And this was one of my fears, that we would get into a late winter this year because of how up and down we've had of a winter. Mild, and when I say mild, I'm saying, 30s, maybe lower 40s for most of us in a lot of parts. Now, if you live in Ohio and south, you're seeing 50s and 60s and 70s. Texas, you guys have had some pretty nice weather until recently. Now we're looking at 10 inches of snow in some spots. So anyway, Mari, would you like to come over here and say hello to the folks out there in the chat while I go ahead and cruise over to Europe, take a look at their weather?
Why we have things falling off the wall, Jake?
That was kind of weird.
Yeah. I would like to say hello to everyone in the chat. Let's take a look at who's in here right now. We got Constantly Contrary, she said, or he, she, I don't know with these usernames. Sorry. They are going to put a comment in the links or something. So, hello. Dennis, Doug, Eduardo, Jonathan, Marie Mitchell, Matt Bros, McLaw,
What's up,
Cheryl,
Matt?
Tammy, Thomas. I think I saw Richard in there earlier.
I saw Richard earlier.
Marie put at Jake GSM. So from everything we've talked about, basically we're going to be really sucking it the next couple winters, right? Because this winter wasn't that bad here.
Well, this winter's not over.
And it's regional as well.
Yes.
The jet stream has been sort of interesting. If you watch it, it dips low and then it comes up high, and it coming up is bringing the warmer air up for us in New York, it seems, a little bit.
Well, and like I said, the jet stream, low solar activity, low solar wind, so the jet stream acts a little more loosely than it would if we had higher solar wind impacting the Earth's magnetic field. So the jet stream is just kind of like, if you can imagine, just like a wet noodle right now.
And before, I was so distracted when that thing fell off the wall, but for our members, I just would like to thank you for supporting this. Last week, I had to pay $79 for the SSL certificate, and today we renewed our web hosting, which was like $189. So there is cost involved here. You guys are deflecting that greatly for us.
Yes.
So I can't even thank you is not enough. I don't even know how to thank you guys, but it really means a lot to us that you stick by us, and
you guys definitely showed your support for us.
Yeah, especially days like that, because it's a lot of money just to go out like that. So thank you, and we constantly are putting what you give back into this channel. And that's all I got, Jake. I hate that you have to leave in the morning in this icy weather.
That's all right, because you got your fan club out there who gets Mari videos on Thursdays and Friday mornings. So
my fan club.
Oh yeah, you got him out. One guy actually said R.I.P. Jake. So ouch.
I didn't see that.
I know, I deleted it.
Did you?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you're so butthurt, Jake.
Butthurt is right. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I got to get to bed early. I'm leaving early for Massachusetts. We hope everyone stays safe out there. Watch out for that storm here in the Northeast. In fact, let's go ahead. Right before I leave, I want to give one more quick look at what NOAA is telling us we're going to be looking at here tomorrow. Now, this is today's actually Wednesday, and then tomorrow morning this is where it just becomes a mess here in the Northeast. Severe heavy rains, flash flooding across the East Coast. So the eastern part of this country tomorrow, north and south, is going to be a wild one. So there's going to be plenty to talk about, and I'm sure Mario will give you an update when needed. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the evening edition of the Grand Solar Minimum channel, and we will talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.